Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Today I'll be your judge, your jury, and your analyst. And today I bring to you my top 5 teams for the Sinnoh Cup. This video took a little bit because I was like looking at my life choices. I was like, okay, you know what? This cup is like the Gastrodon Cup. And I'm like looking at it, I'm like scratching my head, and I'm like, man, like this is like either you're gonna have Gastrodon or you're gonna kill Gastrodon. Or if you're not going to kill Gastrodon, you're going to kill Gastrodon's counters, or a team that has likely a counter to Gastrodon on it, because it's freaking Gastrodon. So yeah, that's why I was like, I'm glad. I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, this cup is really like nuts. So did a little bit of digging here and there just to see what you might encounter, and these 5 passed my tests, because I tried a few of them. I'm like, yeah, this is a bad idea, this is a bad idea, this might be good, okay, you know what, this is really cool, and or like, this is really good, and I'm like, all right, cool. So, for those of you that didn't watch my Sinnoh Cup early analysis, Gastrodon's a beast in this cup. Just because I told you before, just because it literally has the ability to essentially just farm down an entire Gastrodon by slapping it to death. Very much like you do with a Dialga with the Rhyperior when you get it matched up in Master League Classic. So, this is going to be these 5 teams, Generation 4 is really, I wonder why they skip Hoenn. Like, y'all, like, you went from Kanto to Sinnoh and then back to Johto. Like, what the heck does anybody at Niantic know your generations? I'm just saying, like, y'all are just as clueless as trying to fix Go Battle League for the past 2 years and some change, or PvP for 3 years if you count the entire time PvP's actually been released in Pokemon Go. And that gives me my mental health tip for the day. So, one of the things you need to do, or like, a really good thing about doing it is like, this is for sleep, because I've been talking about sleep for the past couple times, but actually going outside and getting some sun. So, it actually improves your mood, improves your mental health, improves your physical health as well, because you walk out, you get the sun, and it allows you to basically sleep better at night because you get a little bit of sun, and then at night you're like, okay, I'm not a vampire. So, you can get some sleep, or like many of you do when you play Pokemon Go, going out, walking out, playing some Pokemon Go, very healthy for your health. Definitely recommend you go outside and get some sun. I have to go out a lot just because I'm a therapist, I'm a clinician, so I have to walk around, and I have to walk to my office, and, well, I have to go to school, and I'm a wrestling coach, so I get a lot of sun, especially at like 10-hour tournaments where you're like freaking going out back and forth between gyms, walking around mad, etc., and making sure your kids aren't getting killed by other kids, and making sure your kids are dominating other kids. Just saying. But yes, go outside, take a little bit of walk. Good 20-30 minutes will do really good for you at night and improve your overall mood. These are my top 5 teams for the Sinnoh Cup. A lot of them, I've practiced with a few of them, given a little bit of practice here and there, and I've like fixed a few things just because, okay, Gastrodon, kill Gastrodon, this, and these teams I like a lot, or gives you a lot of different looks so that you can do really well and climb in the Sinnoh Cup. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so my first team is Toxicroak, Cresselia, Safe Switch. Well, it's actually like double Safe Switch because you could use Toxicroak, Cresselia, or Munchlax. So Cresselia is pretty baller in this cup just because it's a giant tank. However, it kind of goes like this. Cresselia dies to Gastrodon, Cresselia beats Toxicroak, and Cresselia has a lot of coverage against things like Gastrodon, etc. just because of the fact that you have Grass Knot. Grass Knot blows up Gastrodon. Moonblast will take out those Gallades, and Cresselia, the reason why it's a top 10 Safe Switch, of course it's tanky, it's got a lot of coverage as well, except it dies to Gastrodon. So this gives you Toxicroak as well as Munchlax to give you that bulldoze, or just smacking the unholy crap out of Gastrodon, as in you beat it to death, you break its shields, and then you just absolutely just punch it into submission, like, you know, ground and pound, like Habib 29-0, take it down, and bash it around, and just beat the unholy crap out of it for the technical knockout. Yes, that's how much I hate Gastrodon. As you see, this team has probably one of the good stats across the board. Amazing coverage, consistency, good grades across, and does a lot of consistent damage. The reason why Toxicroak, you'll probably see Toxicroak leagues a lot, is just because Toxicroak beats Lucario, and it has a really great coverage against anything that basically isn't a psychic type that will confuse you to death. Or, of course, even against Cresselia, Sludge Bomb does a decent amount of damage just by how tanky Cresselia is if you're able to get to it. As you see, overall meta does very, very well. If you lose the lead, safe switch into either Cresselia or Munchlax, whichever one you're feeling like. And as you see, this team has the most legendary threat score of all time, 569. You already know it's great, you already know it's wonderful, and you already know it's freaking awesome. Now, as you see, this whole team dies to Wormadam Trash. Now, the reason why Wormadam Trash isn't so much of a threat in this cup, I mean, you can still see it, but the issue for Wormadam Trash is something called Bastiodon. Bastiodon will absolutely annihilate you. Not only does it wall everything Wormadam has to offer, but it could affect, it just sits there and just laughs at you while it just, you know, chucks a bunch of boulders at your face. One of your biggest weaknesses is probably going to be definitely ghost types like Drifblim, of course Frostless, so you lose the lead. Cresselia and Munchlax do have a great matchup against either, well, not a great matchup per se, but you can do some chip damage, etc. I've beaten Frostless, Safe Switch, and Drifblim teams with this team, so you can switch out, and then it just really depends what the other ones are. If you, as much as possible, I would get rid of Cresselia first if you're going to try to safe switch out, just because of the fact that Cresselia gets hard-walled by Bastiodon. So if you throw in Cresselia, you give it up anyways, or better yet, they throw their Bastiodon into you after you throw in Cresselia, if you don't see Bastiodon in the lead. Then you can farm it down with Toxicroak, throw all that energy in the back, and Munchlax and Toxicroak with energy and shields can close out. So, very tanky team. Toxicroak is a beast in this cup, outside of the fact that, again, make sure you avoid those confusion users, make sure you switch out of those ghost types, etc., like Drifblim or Frostless, and then switch into Cresselia, go to town, and then hopefully you can line them up against Munchlax. Munchlax does take double resisted damage against Ghost because it's a normal type, and it has like, so it's super effective, so Munchy go Munch. But, again, very solid team, and if you like Toxicroak, this team can do well for you. Toxicroak, double safe switch. You can also use Future Sight Cresselia. It's not a bad idea because you do get stabbed, and that extra damage you get from Future Sight might actually give you the dub in some scenarios. Moonblast debuff is just as good, but again, Future Sight Cresselia, not a bad idea. Make sure you have Grass Knot though, because Grass Knot is what gives you that OKO ability against Gastrodon. Alright, next up we got Empoleon, Gallade, and we got Bastiodon. God, I hate how these are on my top teams, but you know what? It's that good, so... Empoleon is also a great lead. Empoleon does really well against those Gliscors. Empoleon also is able to tear Bastiodon a new hole just because you do resist those smackdowns, and Waterfall does super effective damage. Empoleon is also able to give you, like, for example, things like Gliscor, or just other ground types, etc. Empoleon does really well. Empoleon's Hydro Cannon also does a ton of damage, so it's able to give a lot of pressure against things like Drifblim, etc. just because Hydro Cannon threatens, and it does so much damage. You also have Drill Peck for coverage against things like Gallade. If you're trying to OKO Gallade, or if you're trying to OKO a Toxicroak, you got Drill Peck for that. Gallade it's actually a very interesting safe switch. With one Leaf Blade, you will kill a Gastrodon, so that's why Gallade is a beast, and close combat hits like a truck. Now, what's gonna suck is if Gallade gets locked into a Drifblim, but that's what we have Bastiodon for. Drifblim cries in the face of Bastiodon, or just any flying type in general. In practice, this team's done incredibly well. Gallade's a very weird safe switch, but it functions just like it does in Ultra Premier Classic. Break shields, save your shields from Empoleon or Bastiodon, or if you close combat or Leaf Blade, well, most of the time it's close combat through shield, it's going to hurt a lot. Your opponent is going to cry because it hits like a truck. One Punch Gallade is one of the greatest seasons of all time, but for those of you that like using Gallade in Ultra Premier Classic, it's basically the same thing, same way to be used in the Sinnoh Cup. Use it to break shields, use it to KO, and yes, one Leaf Blade will assassinate a Gastrodon at full HP. Amazing coverage, bulk, C for safety and consistency. This is a very solid grades across the board. With your only big problem being Magnezone, which isn't even that bad, to be honest with you. Magnezone has to wild charge you for Empoleon. And the thing about Magnezone is that it can beat a Bastiodon, and the keywords can. It can beat Bastiodon, just straight mirror shot. But you have to get the debuff, and you can't get Flamethrower. So it's a very weird mon. But you can see some zones out here. One of my teams does feature Magnezone. It's a great safe switch, and it does a ton of damage. Not a lot of things resist both Wild Charge and Mirror Shot. And if you get the debuff, or if you hit a Empoleon at full power with Magnezone, it will kill. As you see, a pretty dang low threat score, with your only weaknesses being the fighter leads. Fighters give you a problem with this team just because of Empoleon and Bastiodon. Despite that, I've been able to Drill Peck, Hydro Cannon, and or just assassinate the fighter with Gallade. If you get the fighter in the lead with Empoleon, you can chip away at it, come out with shield advantage, have Gallade farm down. Gallade with energy can possibly break the rest of your opponent's shields, and then Bastiodon can possibly close out the match. There's a lot of things that Bastiodon can beat down with SmackDown, you know, like Friday Night SmackDown, without having to actually use any shields or anything of that sort, just because it's so godforsakenly tanky. For example, Frostless will cry if you do get a Bastiodon against it, and of course with Stone Edge and Flamethrower, if you manage to get hit with it with a charge move, doesn't hit a lot because Bastiodon's attack is so low, but if it's super effective, it might kill, like a Stone Edge on a Frostless at a certain range. Still a pretty big range, even though, like I mentioned, Bastiodon has a low attack. Solid team, does a lot of damage. If you love Empoleon, this team's for you. Alright, next up we have Drifblim, Shadow Drapion as your safe switch and or Magnezone. So this is another double safe switch team. Remember how I told you if you watched my early Sinnoh analysis, I told you that freaking Shadow Electivire would be the #1 closer just because the Wild Charge does so much damage. And you utilize the same concept here with Magnezone. I would use a regular one instead of a Shadow version though, just because that extra bulk can help, and most things will die from a Shadow Wild Charge, or a regular Wild Charge, and then Mirror Shot. So it's very unlikely that little extra damage you'll have will matter in the Sinnoh Cup, especially because everything does so much damage to begin with. Or if you get locked into a Bastion, you're pretty much screwed anyways. So, what this happens with this team is that Drifblim is very good in the lead because you'll wall off Toxicroak, you also wall out Gastrodon. So, you have two targets that you essentially wall off. So, it might not be a bad idea to have a Drifblim in the back so that you can lock it into Toxicroaks, or again, Toxicroaks, Gastrodons, Drifblim, Shadow Ball, and Icy Wind also threatens things like Gliscor, and a Shadow Ball will kill a Frostless at basically full power because it does so much damage. Now, the interesting thing about Shadow Drapion is the #1 safe switch. It's because of the fact that it puts so much pressure on a lot of the meta. You resist Psychic types like Cresselia, you also resist Confusion users, and you also resist Dark types. So, it's a very interesting mon. If you look at this sim, so Bastion beats Drapion, but what happens is this. It's with Shadow Drapion. If it's the 2-shield scenario, Shadow Drapion loses, but one turn will flip it over. So this is a very weird scenario with Shadow Drapion. It will say you beat in the 2-shield, however, you have to get one Poison Fang through, or a Poison Jab through. You have to get one Poison Sting through, as you see here, and then it will flip the matchup. But here's the thing, even if you do lose this matchup, as you see, Bastiodon has 22 HP still. So you could force both of its shields, and then, or win back alignment, or what you can do is that you can farm down the Bastiodon that decides to expend both of its shields here, and then you can throw all that energy against your opponent's back row, and that's GG's. So you have there's a lot of interesting plays you can make with so much pressure. This is personally one of my favorite teams I've practiced with. It does a lot of pressure, a lot of damage, and again, Drifblim has that wall potential against Toxicroak and Gastrodon. So if you notice the meta starts shifting a lot over there, guess what? Use a Drifblim. This floating hex of destruction will, yeah, it's freaking hilarious. Well, the reason was this: it resists Toxicroak. The Ghost type resists normal, as well as the Sludge Bombs from Toxicroak, and then you resist the Mud Bombs from Toxicroak, as well as Earth Power from Gastrodon. That's why Drifblim is absolutely amazing. Against anything, it also has an incredibly legendary threat score of 569. 569 and a 420 when against Bastion. What more can you want? Now, the thing about this is Drifblim is weak to electric type, so if you do see things like Magnezone leads or Pachirisu leads, then you might want to switch out into Drapion or to Magnezone itself. Or you can line up against Drapion and then Magnezone, you're just going to have a wild charge fest as a result of it. Pachirisu XL is scary to use in this cup because of the fact that Bastiodon exists. If you have a Pachirisu against the Bastiodon, your Pachirisu is dead. You have no coverage, Mammosan will laugh at you, and it's just going to smack you down to oblivion. Just because Pachirisu has no coverage moves, etc. So, again, that's why I'm like, electric types, not so much. Because electric types lose against Bastiodon, and also electric types also lose against... Electric types get farmed down by Gastrodon, and you get punched to death by Toxicroak / Lucarios. So, not a really safe lead, or just in general, if you see a electric type in the lead for your opponent. So the thing about Magnezone though, Magnezone can beat Bastion in 2-shield as a shadow, but again, that's a really iffy matchup, and you kind of have to get the debuff anyways if you play this matchup. So if you see here and you put in the 2-shield, flip it around, go to Magnezone. Oh wait, not Group A. Magnezone. No, not Mag Cargo. Magna Cargo. Mag Cargo is not available. Well, it's not. It's Johto Cup, not one way around. Okay, go over here. Magnezone wins, but one turn of difference will make one turn of difference. So you have to double Mirror Shot, and then double Wild Charge. That's a one shield scenario. In the two shield, here's what happens. You break both shields with Mirror Shot, and then you double Wild Charge. So if you land double Wild Charges, you win. Or if you get the debuff on any of the Mirror Shots, it gives you a really good matchup. So if you apply the debuffs, or apply this one, don't apply the debuff for that one, it gives you a really healthy matchup, as you see here. So you're going to have to expend both shields for the flamethrowers, but yes, as you see, Magnezone has a pretty healthy matchup against Bastion, as long as you can land 2 Wild Charges. And yeah, land 2 Wild Charges, bait 2 shields with Mirror Shot. It's a lot to ask for, but there's a lot of ways you could play around with Bastion with Magnezone. Alright, team number 2 features a very, very brain-dead team. Well, not really brain-dead. It's a tap team, okay? It's Gastrodon, Frostless, Safe Switch, and Bastion. I'm not going to spend a lot of time analyzing this team because it's what it is. Gastrodon has the ability to essentially mud-slap the living oblivion out of Toxicroak. Bastion, you could farm down entire Bastion with Gastrodon. It's crazy. And it also does well against Steel types and against the Poison type meta. So Gastrodon, like if you saw my early meta analysis, I mentioned that Gastrodon is going to be beastly in this cup because of its mud slap ability. And I have a Filipino one. I caught one in the Philippines, the blue one, and I will use the blue one. And then you have the regular one in America, the non-cool one. I think the blue one's better shade, etc. But as you see here, this team has amazing coverage, bulk, like good grids across the board, just not very safe. Frostless is basically here just to, if you lose lead against Gastrodon, like against a Cresselia, etc., you're going to stay switch into Frostless, try to break shields, line up the Cresselia against Bastion, and once you wipe out Gastrodon's weakness, Gastrodon can hopefully mud-slap its way to victory. As you see against a lot of the overall meta, this team does ridiculously well, and for good reason. Your only weaknesses are Gallade, Prinplup. Those are the only 2 mons that actually give you a humongously hard time. One Leaf Blade, like I mentioned for the previous teams, will wipe out one Gastrodon, so you have to be really careful. However, Frostless, as long as you have shields, you can wipe out Gallade, and that's why it has an incredibly low threat score of 521. This team's threat score is ridiculously low, and that's because Tap is incredibly strong in this cup. You get Gastrodon lined up to Bastion, your Bastion and your Frostless are going to have an incredible time. Not too complicated. You lose the lead against Gastrodon, guess what? You switch in a Frostless, break as many shields as you can, or save shields for Bastion, or just outright win switch, and then Bastion and Gastrodon go to town. I just noticed, Gastrodon and Bastion, those are 2 Dons. Maybe they're like cousins or something like that. They're related. Well, they're both Tap mons, so I just noticed that. The Odon at the end. They're both dinosaur. Like, yeah, like, I'm promoting a tap team, but it's really that freaking good. My A9 double charm did well for y'all, but damn, it's just, you know, Bastion's just good. I might actually use this team for once just to get my sets done, but I'm gonna like tank for content anyways because I'm gonna be running a bunch of stuff for live shoutcast videos. So again, this is a really typical really formal tap team. Gastrodon is just in the lead most of the time because you beat Empoleons, you also beat Toxicroaks, Lucarios that you would likely see, and again, if you see Gastrodons or Bastions in the lead. So if you get those in the lead, great for you, and just lock in a Gastrodon, it goes to town against those typings. Earth Power and Body Slam can also hit for big damage. So you can farm down entire Bastion and then throw all that energy at your opponent in the back row, and like Earth Power and like Body Slam, like I mentioned, can do big damage against what you put in the back, whatever's in the back, because you have so much energy. Alright, last but not least, we got Gliscor lead, Magnezone as your safe switch, or like Frostless. So double safe switch again, along with Gliscor. So this team's actually pretty nuts. It has a ton of pressure, breaks a lot of shields, and also Gliscor with Earthquake is a beast. You could triple Earthquake a Bastion to death, and of course, if you get the boost, freaking boost, Gliscor goes to town with Night Slash. But this team is very powerful. The reason why you have Magnezone and Frostless is to cover your weaknesses against Frostless. And of course, if you get a Empoleon, which is Gliscor's biggest weakness. But Gliscor is a great lead for how much coverage it has. If you get the Night Slash boost, Earthquake destroys Bastion. At the same time, Gliscor does resist those fighters. And you have a really great matchup against Gastrodon. So Gliscor is a very, very interesting mon and does really, really well with these two combinations. This team has a ton of pressure, not a lot of bulk. We're just gonna we're gonna hack and slash all of your shields and just nuke you to death with this team. That's this team's purpose, and it's going to destroy your opponent. A for coverage, not a lot of bulk, pretty safe. You have a double safe switch as your two back rows, so just break shields, switch out, and then Gliscor can possibly Earthquake the Bastion in the back for the W. Also, you have Night Slash, so you can also cover Ghost types, so if you get the boost, or if you have a Frostless or a Drifblim in the back, hopefully you can Night Slash for the W right then and there if you have enough energy. And the interesting thing about this team is that it actually has like the lowest threat score I've ever like put to, well, it has a stupid low threat score. 514, really low, a lot of pressure, and not a lot of things actually threaten this team super hard. That or you have nuke ability for both of your back row. Just because Frostless is still a beast, the Frostless 2 shield strat can still work in the Sinnoh Cup. The only issue is you need to get rid of Bastion, which is why you have Gliscor with Earthquake, or Magnezone can Mirror Shot / Wild Charge it to death. So Magnezone is a beast, and so is your pretty much this entire team if you're able to get the energy and hit the right charge moves, or if you get the boost with Gliscor. Really high threat score, or really low threat score. Really low threat score, weak to Ice and Empoleons in the lead. So if you see those, safe switch into Magnezone or Frostless, break shields, go to town, and hopefully Gliscor Magnezones with shields or Frostless, depending on which one you safe switch out to, will close out and get you the W. Very strong team, low threat score. If you're good with energy management, shield management, this team is for you. In practice, I've boosted with Gliscor, and it can get you out of certain scenarios if you happen to get the boost. If you get it in the beginning, it's going to suck for your opponent. You get it in the back, Night Slash plus the energy gain from Gliscor can go to town, and it will KO your opponent. And that's GG's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully one of these teams do help you out. There's a lot of options you have here. As you see, this team is kill Bastion, or you are not this team. This cup is either you're going to kill Bastion or be killed by Bastion. So be prepared to be caught and trapped by one of these, by Gastrodon, or you're gonna have an entire team that will kill Bastion and its counters, because, or you'll have Gastrodon in your team because Gastrodon has a wide coverage against a lot of the meta. So you're gonna have either one tap component on your team, and it does really well. I don't know why they skipped Hoenn. I really don't. Hoenn has a ton of great mons in there, but apparently we're gonna skip Gen 3 and go all the way straight. We're gonna go from Gen 1 to Gen 4, then Gen 2. And Gen 2 is only gonna be a week up, but yeah, I don't know. Tell me in the comments, do you like Gastrodon Cup or you don't like Bastion? You know what I mean? It's like WWE and AEW. Which one do you like? Do you like AEW or like WWE? Which one you want? In my opinion, I like both of them, but like, you know, AEW has been killing it lately because, yeah, yes. Freaking Kenny Omega. I love Kenny Omega. He's like he's an amazing wrestler. But I'm also, AJ Styles is like my favorite wrestler, so, you know, I'm conflicted. My heart says my heart says AEW, but you know what? My boy AJ Styles is in WWE, so I gotta pick and choose. And I definitely don't choose Bastion, but I'm probably going to use my tap team just to like quickly run through my sets. And I'm going to be doing a lot of experimenting with Sinnoh Cup once it goes live, just so that I can pull a few things through. So these are my top 5 teams. Again, hopefully they give you a good idea, and hopefully this video gives you a bit of knowledge of what the Sinnoh Cup has in store for you, because it's going to be full of Bastiodons. Anyways, would you do me a huge favor? Please like and subscribe. It's totally free. You see those 2 Charmanders right here? Next to these 2 Charmanders, there's a sub box. If you push your mouse over the sub box, you can easily subscribe from there. Really appreciate my current subscribers. Good luck in your Go Battle League sets. I can't wait till Sinnoh Cup starts so that I can stop playing Master League. And I will see you guys on the next video.